Hey everybody, McNeil here, and this is probably the first time I've done a legit sit-down video in upwards of 2 months, so this is gonna be interesting. Today I want to do a video all about one of my absolute favorite passions, comic books, and the #1 question that I get when people realize that I'm such a comic book geek is, how do I start? Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the past 75 years or so, you would know that the 2 main publishers for comic books are DC and Marvel. And there's been a slight bit of competition between the 2 publishers since the very beginning, which I don't understand why, because Marvel is clearly the superior here. But it all comes down to what type of story you're looking for. And like I said, these stories have been going on for upwards of 75 years, so it can be a little intimidating to figure out where to start. Marvel and DC do a great job of drawing new readers in, though, by republishing some of our favorite origin stories under these vast umbrella titles that also can be a little bit intimidating. Since the comic book universe is such a vast and crazy world, it's impossible to read every single story that has ever been told. So these collections kind of help to bring you in and understand where these characters are coming from. If you don't care about learning these characters' origin stories, you can just go to any local comic book store and pick up a trade paperback. A trade paperback is essentially just a large collection of individual comic books, and they look kind of like this. This right here is the House of M series, which brings me to my next point. Crossover specials are essential into getting into comic books because not only does it give you one specific story, it gives you how it affects the universe as a whole. You'll see different people like the Avengers, the X-Men, Spider-Man, Daredevil, all coming together within this one contained storyline, and from that, everything changes within the Marvel or the DC universe. These crossover stories happen about once every like 6 or 7 months, and they are just insane. They are like the blockbusters for comic books, and they provide a good starting off point for any newbie because they do go back, reference a little bit of the past history while also propelling the universe forward. If superheroes aren't your thing though, there are a bunch of independent publishers that publish stories just about people. Companies like Dark Horse, Vertigo, and Image, just to name a few, put out stories that are very much in their own universe, but also could take place in our own. If this is more your speed, I would suggest titles like Fables, Y the Last Man, Ex Machina, Morning Glories, oh god, the list goes on and on. I love independent publishers. They are so amazing and they are so self-contained. You can read these stories in one sitting and be blown away by how much the story has changed over the course of about 80 issues. Scott Pilgrim is also a great gateway comic for people who don't necessarily want to get into the comic book world, but want a good story and have seen the movie before. Now, if you're sitting there and going, well, I'm a big TV buff and I don't know how to get into comic books because some of my favorite TV shows have seasons, and comics don't necessarily have that. They're just this ongoing storyline that just never seems to end, and everything just seems to be getting so fucked up over the course of thousands and thousands of issues that there is no way to contain the story. Well guys, you're in luck because some of your favorite TV shows have recently made the transition into the comic book world, and it's fantastic. They run on a season-by-season schedule, so they have an allotment of issues that we will wrap up the story in this 40, 25, 30 issues, and it works well. One of the most popular cases of this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you didn't know by now, Buffy has been publishing comics for the past 5 years, I think, ever since I was in high school, following the lives of Buffy and her friends after season 7 and after the fall of Sunnydale. It's completely overseen by Joss Whedon himself and is such an amazing continuation of the Buffy universe that anybody who wants to get into comic books who likes Buffy and doesn't know where to start would be freaking blown away by this. And if you didn't already know this, Joss Whedon wrote a few other comic books as well. He had a run on Astonishing X-Men that is probably one of the most brilliant storylines in recent X-Men comics. Other TV shows like Angel, Charmed, and The X-Files all have continuations right now in publishing, so if you're fans of those series and want to see where the story left off, go pick those up. Other shows like True Blood, Doctor Who, and even the Star Wars franchise have comic book continuations, but it's really unclear whether or not those stories are canon, so I would steer away from those. I don't know, I haven't read any of them. Let me know in the comments below if those are any good, and give me some suggested titles to check out. Now, I know this was a lot of explanation and not a lot of practice, so I'm gonna give you a few titles that I think would be great for any first-time readers out there. Check out the Runaways, Young Avengers, Watchmen, of course, the Dark Phoenix Saga for any of you X-Men fans out there, Marvel 1602 by Neil Gaiman. Even if you're not fans of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I would suggest going back, watching the entire series, and then reading the comic books because it is completely worth it. Brian Michael Bendis' entire run on Ultimate Spider-Man, it is amazing. Also, speaking of Brian Michael Bendis, his entire run on the New Avengers. Pretty much anything by Brian Michael Bendis. Y the Last Man is an amazing story by Brian K. Vaughan. And of course, the Scott Pilgrim series. If you have any other suggestions for titles to read, leave them in the comment below and we'll just start a discussion for any new readers out there who want to get into comics. Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this video at some point in my life. That's all I've got for you guys today. Until next time, I'll catch you later, nerds. I read too many comics because I couldn't figure out what to tell you to read.